Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this episode of Mahabharat. This version of Mahabharat is the translated version of the Ved Vyas Mahabharat by Kisari Mohan Ganguli. This is an honest attempt to share the version with the listeners. Adi Parva Continued. Section 19th. Astik Parv Continued. Sauti said, then the Daityas and the Danavas, equipped with first class armors and various weapons, attacked the gods. In the meantime, the valiant Lord Vishnu, in the form of an enchantress, accompanied by Nara, deceived the mighty Danavas and took away the Amrita from their hands. And all the gods at that time of great fright drank the Amrita with delight, receiving it from Vishnu. And while the gods were partaking of it, after which they had so much hankered, a Danava named Rahu was also drinking it among them in the guise of a god. And when the Amrita had reached Rahu's throat, only Surya and Soma recognized him and intimated the facts to the gods. And Narayana instantly cut off with his disgust the well adorned head of the Danava who was drinking the Amrita without permission. And the huge head of the Danava, cut off by the discus and resembling a mountain peak, then rose up to the sky and began to utter dreadful cries. And the Danava's headless trunk, falling upon the ground and rolling thereon, made the earth tremble with her mountains, forests, and islands. And from that time, there is a long standing quarrel between Rahu's head and Surya and Soma. And to this day, it swalloweth Surya and Soma during solar and lunar eclipses. Then Narayan, quitting his enchanting female form and hurling many terrible weapons at the Danavas, made them tremble. And thus, on the shores of the salt water sea, commenced the dreadful battle of the gods and the asuras. And sharp pointed javelins and lances and various weapons by thousands began to be discharged on all sides. And mangled with the discus and wounded with swords, darts, and maces, the asuras in large numbers vomited blood and lay prostrate on the earth. Cut off from the trunks with sharp double edged swords, heads adorned with bright gold, fell continually on the fields of the battle. Their bodies drenched in gore, the great asuras lay dead everywhere. It seemed as if red dyed mountain peaks lay scattered all around. And when the sun rose in his splendor, thousands of warriors struck one another with weapons, and cries of distress were heard everywhere. The warriors fighting at a distance from one another brought one another down by sharp iron missiles, and those fighting at close quarters slew one another with blows of their fists. And the air was filled with shrieks of distress. Everywhere were heard the alarming sounds: cut, pierce, at them, hurl down, advance. And when the battle was raging fiercely, Nara and Narayan entered the field. And Narayan, seeing the celestial bow in the hands of Nara, called to mind his own weapon, the Danava destroying discus. And lo, the discus Sudarshan, destroyer of enemies, like to Agni in effulgence and dreadful in battle, came from the sky as soon as thought of. And when it came, Narayan, of fierce energy, possessing arms like the trunks of an elephant, hurled with great force that weapon of extraordinary lustre, effulgent as blazing fire, dreadful and capable of destroying hostile towns. And that discus blazing like the fire that consumeth all things at the end of the Yuga, hurled with force from the hands of Narayan and falling constantly everywhere, destroyed the Daityas and the Danavas by thousands. Sometimes it blazed like fire and consumed them all. Sometimes it struck them down as it coursed through the sky. And sometimes, falling on the earth, it drank their life blood like a goblin. On the other hand, the Danavas, white as the clouds from which the rain had dropped, possessing great strength and bold hearts, ascended the sky, and by hurling down thousands of mountains, continually harassed the gods. And those dreadful mountains, like masses of clouds, with their trees and flat tops falling from the sky, collided with one another and produced a tremendous roar. And when the thousands of warriors shouted without intermission in the field of battle, and the mountains with the woods thereon began to fall around, the earth with her forests trembled. Then the divine Nara appeared at the scene of the dreadful conflict between the Asuras and the Ganas, the followers of Rudra, and reducing to dust those rocks by means of his gold headed arrows, he covered the heavens with dust. Thus, discomfited by the gods, and seeing the furious discus scouring the fields of heaven like a blazing flame, the mighty Danavas entered the bowels of the earth, while others plunged into the sea of salt waters. And having gained the victory, the gods offered due respect to Mandara and placed him again on his own base. And the nectar bearing gods made the heavens resound with their shouts and went to their own abodes. And the gods, on returning to the heavens, rejoiced greatly. And Indra and the other deities made over to Narayan the vessel of Amrita for careful keeping. And so ends the 19th section in the Astic Parv of the Adi Parv. Section 20. Astic Parv Continued. Sati said, "Thus have I recited to you the whole story of how Amrita was churned out of the ocean, and the occasion on which the horse Uchashrava of great beauty and incomparable prowess was obtained. It was this horse about which Kadru asked Vinata, saying, 'Tell me, amiable sister, without talking much, of what color Uchashrava is.' And Vinata answered, 'The prince of steeds is certainly white. What dost thou think, sister? Say thou, what is its color? Let us lay a wager upon it.' Kadru replied, 'O thou of sweet smiles, I think that horse is black in its tail. Beauteous one, bet with me that she who loseth will become other's slave.' Sati continued. Thus wagering with each other about menial service as a slave, the sisters went home and removed and resolved to satisfy themselves by examining the horse next day. And Kadru, bent upon practicing a deception, ordered her thousand sons to transform themselves into black hair and speedily cover the horse's tail in order that she might not have a slave. But her sons, the snakes, refused to do her bidding. She cursed them, saying, 'During the snake sacrifice of the wise king Janmejaya of the Pandava race, Agni shall consume you all.' And the grandsire Brahma himself heard this exceedingly cruel curse pronounced by Kadru, impelled by the fates. And seeing that the snakes had multiplied exceedingly, the grandsire, moved by kind consideration for his creatures, sanctioned with all the gods this curse of Kadru. Indeed, as the snakes were of virulent poison, great prowess, and excess of strength, and even bent on biting other creatures, their mother's conduct towards them, those precocious of creatures, was very proper for the gods of all creatures. Fate always inflicts punishment of death on those who seek the death of other creatures. The gods, having exchanged such sentiments with one another, supported Kadru's action and went away. And Brahman, calling Kashyap to him, spake into him these words: O thou pure one, who overcomest all enemies, these snakes begotten by you, who are of virulent poison and huge bodies, and ever intent on biting other creatures, have been cursed by their mother. O son, do not grieve for it in the least. The destruction of the snakes in the sacrifice had indeed been ordained long ago. Saying this, the divine creators of the universe comforted Kashyap and imparted to that illustrious one the knowledge of neutralizing poison. And so ends the 20th section in the Astik Parv of the Adi Parv. With this, we come to an end to this episode of Mahabharat and its heroes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is your host, Madhulika Rajahan, signing off. Stay healthy always. Narayan Narayan.